Got your eyes on a home? You'll need the local home loan experts at Guaranteed Rate Affinity. We are a fintech mortgage company that streamlined the home buying process. Our loan officers have direct access to the best real estate agents, giving you a completely seamless home buying experience. Featuring the industry's most advanced tech platform and customized loan solutions, our local loan officers can help you at any time from anywhere. Our digital mortgage and power bid approval will get you pre-approved in minutes with a strong offer even against all cash offers. You need speed to win in this market, and our same-day mortgage delivers, getting you approved in as little as 1 day. Getting you on track for the closing table in as fast as 10 days. Speaking of the closing table, our flash close options shorten the closing appointment from hours to minutes, or skip it altogether. It's your choice. We've made the home buying experience as fast, simple, and awesome as possible for countless others, and we'd love to help you next. Get pre-approved today with the experts at Guaranteed Rate Affinity, and let's get you home.
All right, good day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our presentation. My name is Frank Chardelli. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales of Guaranteed Rate Affinity. We are a sister company to Guaranteed Rate, Inc. So many of you know in the industry, Guaranteed Rate Affinity. We are the partner with Coldwell Banker, but love everyone joining. This is a place for everyone to learn on these calls. So we really welcome all of you here and really get some great insights from one of the top analysts in the country. Logan here, and just let me go over his bio in a second, but so many of us in the industry read HousingWire every single day. Amazing insights that they bring to a very specific and very important part of our country is mortgage banking, real estate. It is a huge sector. So obviously lots of news in the world lately. Really important stuff, and getting these kind of details from someone like Logan is really invaluable to make sure that you're getting educated with really proper insights and able to take this kind of information back to your sphere of influence, to your clients, to your borrowers, and really make sure that everyone feels comfortable with with where we're going as an industry, whether it be in the very near short term, or even going through Q4 and into 2025. So with that being said, I just want to go over the bio right now with Logan. Really impressive. Logan Mohtashami is a renowned expert in the mortgage and housing ecosystem, recognized for his insightful analysis and commentary in the U.S. economy and real estate market. Logan is a lead analyst for HousingWire, the most influential source of news and information for the U.S. mortgage and housing markets, and is a regular contributor to the HousingWire Daily Podcast. And if you have not signed up for the HousingWire Daily Podcast, it is amazing. Great insights every single day, and it really does help you prep and get ready to make sure that you're informing your clients and your borrowers as to what's happening with just the amount of craziness that's happening in our world right now. With that background spanning over 2 decades in the mortgage industry, Logan, nicknamed the chart guy, and there's no doubt we're going to go over some really incredible charts with you here, has a remarkable ability to decipher complex economic data and translate it into the understandable, actionable insights. This knowledge has made him a sought-after commentator, and his expertise has been featured extensively in news outlets, including CNBC, where he is a frequent guest, and I've seen you many times on that. Logan is a highly sought-after speaker and has spoken at industry conferences, including the National Hispanic Organization of Real Estate Associates, New England Mortgage Bankers Conference, and the Lending Council Conference, among several others. His passion for data economics, coupled with his years of direct lending experience, which is great, provides his industry professionalism with critical insights into the ever-evolving mortgage and housing industries. Logan, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. And I will stop talking and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I think I've upgraded the name from Chart Guy to Chart Daddy. So today, basically, what I'm going to present for all of you is what I would be presenting to the Federal Reserve, Wall Street, real estate investors, stock traders, everything, so you can have a better understanding of the housing market, because if you don't follow this stuff religiously, it could be a bit confusing. So we're going to go straight into the presentation right now. Now, for all of you that have been married for 20 or 30 years right now, I'm going to provide this chart. This chart is the 10-year yield and 30-year mortgage rate. These two, this lovely couple has been slow dancing with each other since 1971. So what drives the 10-year yield will drive mortgage rates, right? So the trick is finding what in the cycle can bring this higher or lower. And I think what has occurred over the last 2 years is that people thought if the growth rate of inflation falls, well, then mortgage rates should fall with it. That's not my view. My view since toward the middle and end of 2022 is that the Fed won't pivot until the labor market breaks. And for the first time really in 2 years, I have enough data to explain to everybody that we're in a better spot, not only for the second half of 2022 or 2024, but also 2025, that there are things that are in the labor market and economics now that weren't the case the last 2 years, and it should be better for rates. But right here, there's a simple chart. Just think of these two as a lovely couple slow dancing. Sometimes they're close, sometimes they're away, right? The spreads matter to a degree with this chart, but by the end of this presentation, you'll have a better understanding with rates. So the next chart. The 10-year yield. This is basically my entire life. I look at this all the time, wake up in the morning, go to bed. For those of you that have an Instagram account and follow my Insta stories, you realize I look at the 10-year yield at least 4 or 5 times a day. As we could see clearly, when the 10-year yield got to 5%, right, the Federal Reserve policy seemed to be extremely restrictive for the housing market. They've even gone on public and saying that we were probably too restrictive in policy at that point. When the market believes the Fed is done hiking rates, you usually get a big rally in the bond market and mortgage rates go lower. We had that happen, but it was in a very, very extreme rally. And what occurred early on in the year is similar to what happened in 2023. The economy wasn't breaking in terms of the labor market. So what happened was bond yields started to go up. We kind of talk about this always. The 10-year yield is in an upward trend. And that has all stopped, right? Now we're in a downward trend, and we want to keep this downward trend because the Federal Reserve is starting to make more comments about being afraid about the labor market, right? So the labor market is the key to everything for rates going lower and staying lower, right? That's the key. It's not so much inflation. And also one big data line point that is really bad for mortgage rates in the last 2 years can also get better going out in the future. Next chart. This is the mortgage spreads. Now, for a lot of people, this might be totally foreign language right now, but the spreads between the 30-year and the 10-year, remember that slow dance, that first chart we talked about, right? Sometimes this couple is very close to each other and sometimes they're far apart. Well, they've been far apart for the last 2 years. Usually the spread between the 10-year and 30-year using this data line, it could vary from multiple people, is about 1.6 to 1.8. It got as high as 3% last year. We were actually getting better. If you guys notice that little V shape right there, everything was getting a little bit better, and then the Silicon Valley banking crisis happened and the spreads got worse. So housing was disproportionately hit terribly last year as the spreads got worse. We got 8% mortgage rates, but things are getting better right now this year. Just to give you an apples to apples comparison, if I took the worst spreads from last year and added to mortgage rates today, we're 0.5% higher as of this second on mortgage rates. So we've gotten a little bit better, but we're still far from normal. If I took this chart going all the way back to 1970, there have been a lot of periods where the spreads get worse and then they get better. As the Fed starts cutting rates and talking a little bit more proactive for the economy, this should get better over time. And if this goes back to normal, guess what? We're sub 6% mortgage rates as of this second, even with the 10-year yield not going any lower, right? So the 10-year yield is directional with mortgage rates, but the spreads right now in this chart are still historically high. They get better on their own, sub 6% mortgage rates. If the 10-year yield falls even more lower, boy, you got low 5% mortgage rates. Everyone that is listening to this presentation right now is going to do more business going down in the future if that's the case. Now, in the past, the Federal Reserve has talked about labor market. Everybody was so focused on inflation, but the next few charts are actually going to show this wasn't about inflation for the Fed. It was about attacking the labor market. Next chart. This is the PCE, personal consumption expenditures. This is actually the one inflation data that the Fed tracks. They talk about their 2% target. We have two handles on 12-month PCE for some time now. No rate cuts, nothing, right? We went from 7% all the way down to the mid 2%, and we're still having very restrictive policy. In fact, if the Federal Reserve even cut rates 3 years or three times this year, a quarter point each, they would still be in restrictive policy. So we have made progress on the growth rate of inflation, right? We haven't had to deal with inflation breaking out in a very long time, but the history of global pandemics, they're very inflationary early on, and then the disinflation happened. So there's a lot of argument, did the Fed overdo it? I believe they did, because if they didn't hike the last 6 times, this chart would have looked exactly the same, right? A lot of this is supply driven, but growth rate of inflation has fallen, no rate cuts. Next chart. This is the consumer price index, the CPI. This is what a lot of people love to quote, but even the Fed doesn't technically follow this inflationary data, but they talk about it a lot as well. This is very tilted for shelter and rent inflation, but we got over 9% here on this. Now we're down to the kind of the low 3% levels. And if I go back in the history of inflation, going back to 1914, yes, I'm a total nerd, I know this stuff. The average CPI inflation runs at 3.3%. So there's nothing drastically terrible here at this level. But we actually had lower mortgage rates with the higher growth rate of inflation, right? When inflation was heading toward 9%, rates were lower. So this isn't so much about inflation because, again, we've already made the progress. Why hasn't the Fed started cutting? Because they want to attack the labor market. They secretly say this, actually not secretly, they make this public, but not a lot of people listen to them. Attack labor, attack labor, attack labor. The next chart's the final inflation chart we have here in America. This is the producer price index that the Fed really hated. As you can see, this thing was well over double digits during the inflationary boom of the global pandemic. And this data line, the finished good products, actually went negative. We are pretty much pre-COVID levels here for some time. No rate cuts, nothing. The 10-year yield today is at what, 4.23%, still elevated. So this isn't so much about inflation. And the reason I'm bringing this up is for 2 years, I've talked about the Fed is targeting the labor market, and they're finally starting to get the labor data they want to see to push this to the next stage where they can start talking about rate cuts, where they don't freak out if the 10-year yield goes lower. But by these last 3 charts, hopefully, I know a lot of people thought if the growth rate of inflation fell, rates would go down with it and we'd be at 4%. No, that doesn't work in this economic cycle. But the next few charts will explain why I think the next, not only 6 months, but the next 18 months are going to be a little bit different than the previous. Now, this is the average hourly wages. The Fed kind of doesn't want to admit this too publicly, but they hate Americans making more money. It's bad. It's inflationary. If people have more money, they'll spend more, right? So we got to get inflation down. They have an old Fed model. You got to be a total dork to remember this, but they love wage growth at 3%. And because they don't believe in the productivity numbers, I won't bore you too much with that one. 1% productivity, 3% wage growth, they believe that. The Fed doesn't necessarily believe they're really good productivity data, so they're still putting the press to the metal to get this wage growth. It's right now currently 3.9%. It was 6.1%. Now, there's this whole theory that wages can spiral out of control like the 1970s. Not happening, right? This chart would be going up higher, not going lower. So we're finally into this area where wage growth is heading toward the Fed's desired 3%. This wasn't the case the last 2 years, but the labor supply is getting higher, which means wage growth should cool down. This really matters for mortgage rates in our industry. By the end of this presentation, you'll realize that it's really all about rates for us here. Next chart. Okay, job openings. Some people might not know what this is. This is a big data line for my work over the last 14 years, but the Federal Reserve loves this. They quote this all the time. Job openings in America got to 12 million. For those of you that maybe followed my work, the COVID-19 recovery model I wrote on April 7th, 2020, not only were we going to recover in 2020, but job openings were going to get to 10 million. It got to 12 million. The Fed hates job openings this high. Now, I personally thought they would wait until 7 million to kind of give the A-OK on this, but they've realized that the quits percentage is basically back to pre-COVID levels. But the fact that this data line has now fallen almost 4 million is good for rates, because this was one of the Fed's main talking points. They want job openings down, because if you quit your job and go get a higher paying job, wages go up, they want to attack that. So this is a positive for the real estate and mortgage industry that this is occurring right now. Next chart. This is the quiet Fed killer chart right here. I call this a quit ratio. When people quit their jobs and go get higher jobs, the Fed hates this. This being at 3% drove the Fed crazy, but it's at pre-COVID-19 levels. This is why I think the Fed is starting to cry uncle. The labor supply is growing, job openings are falling, quits percentage is coming lower. They're starting to move to an area that they couldn't do the last 2 years. Even with the growth rate of inflation falling, all of you now seeing those charts are like, wow, that's a lot of progress. They didn't care. This is the data lines that they care about, and now you're starting to see. I mean, Jerome Powell in the last meeting talked about, or his last interview said, now I'm starting to stay up at night about the labor market. These are good things for the real estate and mortgage industry, because that means the potential of rates to go lower and stay lower this time is better. Next chart. Now, one of the things about this economic cycle, everyone calls for a recession every single day. It's been well known. There's something called the inverted yield curve. Stock traders like to use it a lot of times. The history of economic cycles have always told us that until construction workers kind of lose their jobs, you're not really at a recession risk. Now, this is the residential construction workers. These are people that work for apartments, single families, and remodeling, right? Why does this matter? Because typically the Fed raises rates too much, demand gets hit, we go into a recession, but housing gets disproportionately hit first. So usually you see this data line go lower. We haven't even seen this. We're actually increasing. Now, there's a lot of tricky things in this cycle. We have a huge backlog of homes that still need to get built, right? We still have a huge backlog of apartments, which take 21 months to finish, that needs to be built. So we're at the point now where, not in the past, to where we need to start worrying about construction labor. And that's key, because if they start falling, that is a clear recession red flag model right here that we've seen in every cycle going back post World War II. Next chart. Now this chart might be a little bit confusing, but the blue line is single family permits, the red line is multifamily permits. When the red and blue both go down together, it's very recessionary. What we had in 2022 was new home sales were falling. We saw permits fall. That's very recessionary, but apartment permits exploded higher. So this is a divergence that we didn't have in the previous 5 decades. But now permits for 5 units are already at recession lows. And now single family permits are falling for 4 months in a row. This is a very recessionary data line. And now you know, the last chart is that, boy, when this sector start to hit, those people start to lose jobs, and then jobless claims starts to increase. Next chart. Now, I always say, since 2022, we don't have to worry about a job loss recession until jobless claims get up to 323,000, right? We had a lot of people that talked about a job loss recession in 2022, 2023, and early 2024. It's not there yet, because the history of economic cycles is that when the labor market starts to break, this indicator takes off. It happens every single time. We are at historically low levels, but now jobless claims are starting to tick up. Okay, so we want to connect the dots. I always say, you want to be the detective, not the troll. We have permits falling. We have job openings down. We have the quits percentage falling pre-COVID. Wage growth is slowing down. Permits are falling for single family and multifamily. If they start losing their jobs, this thing's going to get up to 323,000 like this, right? And that's how economic cycles work. So before, the Fed didn't care because their job openings data was so large and everything, but now we're starting to move into another area. And remember, I'm not talking about inflation. Don't care about inflation. Inflation's already made the progress. They are 100% focused on trying to break the labor market so they have cover. The Fed always talks about, we need confidence on inflation. Inflation data has made great progress. The Fed has a dual mandate: price stability and employment. If the labor market starts to get softer and breaker, then that's their cover to cut rates and be more show a little bit more progress in talking dovish. So they need the labor market to break. Now, this is my thing that I've been talking about for 2 years. It's been very hard to convince people, but now that you all have visually seen the data, you could kind of understand where I'm coming from. This is the very key data line. Jobless claims come out every Thursday, 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. If this data line starts to shoot up higher, the 10-year yield will go lower, mortgage rates will go lower, like it has every single time since the Peloponnesian War. And it does not wait for the Federal Reserve, right? We've had 2 times now in the last 3 years where the 10-year yield drops and mortgage rates drop. People think the economy's getting weaker, and all of it to shoot up higher. But when this breaks, this will override the Fed. They'll be behind the curve as usual, and mortgage rates will go lower, and the 10-year yield will go. Everyone watching this will do more business. Next chart. This is the existing home sales report that just came out today. As you can see, 3rd calendar year of the lowest home sales ever, right? If I take the workforce, we have over 162 million people working right now. The Fed has completely abandoned the housing market because they don't know what to do with it, right? In the 1970s, when inflation was breaking out, the 70s, home prices were booming, right? Even though mortgage rates were rising toward high single digits, double digits, home sales were booming until 1979. By the time we got to 18% mortgage rates, the fear of the 1970s has made them a little bit cautious about housing, right? And this is why they always focus on rent inflation. But if you look at here, that is record low levels of demand, except we don't really break under 4 million after 1996, right? That's the key. You want to know why home prices hit all-time highs today, is that we're no longer crashing in sales. We're just basically hovering right here. Whenever rates move up or whenever rates move down, we see existing home sales pick up. But rates going down lower for longer, duration is key to everything for housing. You get more people going, okay, I'm ready to buy, home rates are low, I can move, I can sell my house, move. All these things with this low level of sales, everyone is doing more business with lower rates, right? Because even with where home prices are today, with mortgage rates where are today, we're still going to have near 5 million total home sales existing and new home sales put together, back-to-back years. Imagine if rates go sub 6%, right? Everyone is doing more business. Now, people say, well, the 1970s or early 80s, what happened back then? If I took home prices going back to 1942, and then took it out all the way, guess what? We only have nominal home prices decline really in 2008 to 2011. It's very rare to have nominal home prices fall in America. In the early 1990s, it was flat 1 year, down 1%. But even in the 80s, when mortgage rates went up to 18%, 20%, and came all the way back down, nominal home prices increased through that whole time. So we shouldn't be shocked that home prices are still at all-time highs today. I'll explain more why later, but I can tell you this right now, we are at record low levels of sales. It can't get really any worse. And any kind of glimmer of rates going down lower and staying lower, we're missing about 4.2 to 4.7 million home buyers that would traditionally be here the last 3 years, 2022, 2023, and 2024. I count about 1.3 to 1.7. This is basically the trend sales that we would normally have. So I don't usually believe in the pent-up demand thesis, but here it is. Boy, when rates fall, it's like that hungry hippo game. All of a sudden, you got more hippos coming in. There's not that many balls out there, but people have been waiting for a very long time, which I don't think is a healthy thing. This is why the Fed should be more active in talking about getting rates lower, because I don't want the, oh, here they all come, they've been waiting for so long stage. But as you can see here visually, boy, it took 2005, 6, 7, 8 to get to the low levels of the sales in 2008. We had that happen in 12 months, right? The market completely froze. And I'll explain more into that now. But the market that we have today is nothing like the 2008 market or the run up from 2002 to 2005. Next chart. This is the MBA's mortgage purchase application data. This is very key. I always draw these black lines here to show people the history of housing cycles. The market of 2002 to 2005 was crazy, right? We had a major credit boom, major sales growing. Here, we only had 18 months of sales growth before rates went up and crashed sales down. And here we are today, basically lower than the low points of 2008 and 2014, but we never had the massive credit boom. So homeowners are doing great. Now, I was an LO for 17 years. I retired early 2020. My father still has his mortgage company. Our family's been in banking since the late 1950s. It has never looked this good for homeowners in America. You're going to be so shocked with the charts that are going to come out there that all of you that are watching this, put your homeowners in the best spot in the history of planet Earth. Like, we're so wealthy as a country, maybe Cleopatra in her prime, like, adjusting to inflation, had more wealth than America, but American homeowners are just wealthy beyond belief. You'll see this in the charts coming up. Mortgage credit availability index, as you can see in the previous chart, the MBA's mortgage purchase apps took off. As you can see here, the credit availability index took off and then it crashed. It's not the market of 2008. This is key because a lot of people will say, well, when there's a job loss, recessions, credit will get tight. Credit is not going to get tight. It's pretty much 30-year fixed mortgage. With qualified mortgage in, Freddie and Fannie in conservatorship, credit's going to flow, FHA, VA. We have available day in and day out. We just need lower rates. There's a lot of people that say, well, rates went lower, during that period, it didn't boost demand. The market was pushed by credit, not by rates, right? We actually had lower rates in the last decade than we had during the housing bubble year. So we just don't have that market. So when people say, well, credit's going to get tight, credit was tight, during the last 4 years, but especially 2020 and 2021, we originated more loans than any time in the previous decade. So we don't have to worry about that going out in the future. This is one of these 2008 myths that we just don't need to even think about, because the credit availability index, as you can see here, went parabolic and then had an epic crash. Not a problem here. We can't get too tight. We can't get too liberal. Pretty easy peasy. 30-year fixed loans, get it out there. Freddie and Fannie's in conservatorship, money will flow. Next chart. One of my favorite charts. This is the total inventory for the NAR, updated as of this morning. If you want to know why home prices aren't crashing, the peak of inventory of the last 5 decades was in 2007. That was 4 million. Normally, we have between 2 to 2.5 million going back to the early 80s. As you can see, other periods and times we see inventory start to increase at much higher levels. Here we are, the 3rd calendar year of the lowest home sales ever recorded history. We have issues in parts of Texas and Florida with insurance and property taxes. And yet, even today, the total active inventory in 2024 is 1.32 million. That's it. This is the NAR data. The NAR data is a little bit different than our data. Our data is a little bit more fresh and weekly and lively, but even with the biggest crash in home sales, don't have it. But I always like to get people all the way back to the year 2000, right? Remember your favorite song in 2000 and who you were dating back then. In 2000, inventory was rising with rising sales. What was going on there? The credit markets. You saw that availability credit index. People could just list their house, sell their house, buy a home. Credit markets were free back then, and it led to this credit boom and bust. And look at how parabolic the inventory chart went, right? All the way up to 4 million. In fact, inventory peaked 1 year before the recession, and now it's been that steady downtrend. So an easy way, a short way for me to explain this, after qualified mortgage happened in 2010, always think of housing this way. 70 to 80% of all sellers are buyers, right? They sell a house, they buy another one. Inventory is a wash. There's 20 to 30% of inventory left. What group of people do not provide you a house when they buy? It's first-time home buyers. Millennials started to buy in 2013. Purchase application data started to rise from the bottoms of 2014. So millennials, they're the evil people. It's not Wall Street, right? They've been buying homes, don't provide a house. Inventory has been slowly moving lower and lower. So my concern has always been years 2020 to 2024. God, we have the biggest housing demographic patch in history, and inventory is breaking to all-time lows at that period. If something snaps and we get to extreme low levels, we have too many people chasing too few homes. Not the housing bubble crash years where we have major sales growth and major credit growth. Too many people. And this is why today we sit here, July, after the existing home sales report under 4 million, home prices are still at all-time highs, right? This chart can explain one portion of that variable. Now, this is the new listings data. The new listings data is ours, right? HousingWire, we have a live weekly tracker. We track every single family home across the nation, but we do it live. We're like months ahead of the NAR. The new listings data is the thing that a lot of people didn't get correctly. I don't know if you guys remember in 2023, people said there was going to be Airbnb crash. Everybody who owns Airbnb was going to rush to sell their homes. 2023 was the lowest new listings data ever recorded in the history of America. 2024 is going to be the second lowest new listings. These are the homes that come onto the market that don't get a contract right away. In 2008 to 2012, this data line was running at 250 to 400,000 per week. Right now, the last 5 years, it's running between 30 to 90,000. In a normal year, the peak seasonal period is between 80 to 110. So if you want to know why prices aren't crashing, why inventory isn't skyrocketing out of control, people are doing good. By the end of this presentation, you'll see clearly how good. This is our national single family inventory chart. Now it shows that we're up almost 40%. Guess what? 40% from record low levels means we're nowhere back to normal, right? And now we're not mortgage rate lockdown people, at least Mike Simonson and myself. We believe that higher rates can mean mortgage demand doesn't pick up, the days on market could grow, inventory can grow. We're trying to work back to normal, right? And this is our weekly inventory chart. Every Friday night, I get these data lines updated. I put it in a tracker article. So everyone who reads that is already 2-3 months ahead of the NAR and everyone else, right? So this is live weekly data, and it's very seasonal, as you can see, right? In 2022, the slope of that curve, right? You see that was very fast because that came with the fastest crash ever. Now, inventory is growing, healthy, good, positive. We need more, but now we have more choices, right? What I didn't like about the housing market before is, you guys, is a crazy stat, but this is true. In March of 2022, we only had 240,000 single family homes available for sale. That's it. So think about it. A country of 336 million with over 162 million people working, if I took it all together, only had 240,000 single family homes. Of course, 75 to 80% of the homes were multiple bids. It's not because sales were booming, it's too many people chasing too few homes. This is a positive of 2024. Inventory is trying to get back to normal. Mortgage demand being low is one of the key reasons this is happening. But when rates go lower, right, we've always seen this, 70 to 80% of sellers or buyers, mortgage demand picks up, it takes the inventory lower. So we needed this breathing room with inventory. Next chart. We also have a weekly price cut percentages. As inventory grows and demand stays softer, the price cut percentage is increasing. Home prices still hit an all-time high today, right? The history of home prices declining needs a lot of variables to kind of work together. Like the second half of 2022, we saw that. We saw authentic price declines month to month. Inventory was running faster, price cut percentages were running faster. That can give you price declines, but as of now, price growth is going to be slowing down the second half of 2022, which is good for everyone because we don't want prices to escalate out of control. Everyone has to qualify. This is a positive for not only the next 6 months, but going out for the next 6 years, that we have cooled the price growth levels down because everyone has to qualify, and it's very hard to qualify for a home when prices are up 10-20% year over year. So this is a positive data line. We provide this in our tracker article. Remember, this is months ahead of the NAR and everybody else's data. This is my money chart. When I die, on my tombstone, they're going to put this here on my tombstone, not a name or anything. When everybody tells me housing 2008, I tell them, homie, it is not 2005, not 2006, not 2007, not 2008, right? Because in the housing crash years, credit was breaking years before the job loss recession happened. So I draw these black lines here just to make it more obvious. Look at all the bankruptcies that were happening back then. If, people might not remember, there was a 2005 bankruptcy reform laws. Everybody was filing for bankruptcies before the law came in because we had too many consumers filing for bankruptcies that didn't need to or abusing that. And then in 2010, we had qualified mortgage. So there was a famous podcaster that said, oh, foreclosures are up 700%. Home prices are going to crash. You see how small? That's too small. Can't get the job done. That's it. If you can't see that in the chart, right, very small, get your glasses out. That's your 700% increase. The credit markets are completely different now. The credit markets were breaking in 2005, 6, 7, 8. Then the job loss recession happened. None of that has been happening for 14 years, right? We always believe reading is a good thing. Even if you can't read, look at the charts visually. It's not 2008, and we are not even back to the pre-COVID levels, which was a very healthy level. Next chart. Now, this is my love chart. I am not kidding you. Literally, when it gets at 8 o'clock at night in my house, I put some jazz music on, I bring out a cognac, and I look at how beautiful this chart looks. The world hates us for this. Why? Because we all have 30-year fixed loans. So what is housing? Fixed debt cost, rising wages. It is not shocking that the FICO score looks unbelievably great after 2010 because the credit markets were completely fixed. Now, there's going to be some professional grifters that say, oh my God, that's FICO score inflation. That's not real. No, we just originated a lot of loans during COVID. So that's refinances and purchases put together. But since 2010, everything looks great, right? The credit data looks awesome. There's no foreclosure crisis happening right now. And we have an advantage here in America that other countries don't have because the other countries, a lot of the countries are tied to short-term rates. They are doing 90-year loan modifications in Canada. We don't have to do that here. And a lot of it is all of you that are watching this, you put your clients in the best possible position in the history of America. So congratulate yourself because nothing is sexier than this data line right now. Next chart. Delinquency stages. There's already people saying, oh, they'll take the FHA chart and it looks like it's parabolic. No, 30, 60, 90, 120-day lates, notice of defaults are all near all-time lows, right? There's always a 1 to 4% of distress in the credit cycles. We are not even back to 2019 on this data line. Now, when the next job loss recession happens, okay, because cycles come and go, always have to remember this. Unlike 2005, 6, and 7, 8, you all have seen the chart now. You know this. There's no reason not to know this. It's going to take minimum 9 to 18 months to get a foreclosed home into the supply, right? Because you have to go 30-day late, 60-day late, 90-day late, 120 NOD filing. Some states are judicial, some states are non-judicial. It takes forever, right? So it's not like the housing bubble years where inventory already exploded higher before the job loss recession. You guys have all seen that chart now with that black line. All of you know more than most people. Here, nothing's going on. When the next job loss recession happens, you're going to see delinquencies increase, but it's going to take a while to get that supply into the marketplace. This is why we track the new listings data, right? Back then, it was like 250,000 to 400,000 per week. Now we don't have it. It's near record lows still because the credit data looks excellent. Next chart. Okay, loan to value. I love this one. We showed this data recently to everybody. Loan to values, LTVs, all of you know this, especially in the mortgage, are below 50%. We have the highest nested equities in the history of planet Earth right now. Homeowners are so financially wealthy because of this, but this doesn't account for the 40% of homes that don't have a mortgage. So the loan to value right now are at historically the best levels ever, on top of 40% of homes don't have a mortgage. So we have unbelievable amounts of nested equity. And one of my frustration is that all these sellers, man, they could, if they really wanted to move some, they could take some of that nested equity they have and maybe create better pricing. But man, look at how beautiful this chart is. Now people are going to say, oh, Logan, you're only showing this from 2013. What was it like during the housing bubble crash years? I was like, do I really need to explain that? Yeah, the loan to values were 85% during the worst periods. Because why? We had a lot of underwater mortgages. Next chart. So in 2010 Q4, 23% plus of homes were underwater. So not only are you a foreclosure risk, right? If you're underwater, it's hard to sell your house and buy another one when you don't have selling equity. You got to bring the cash in or you don't have any equity. None of that is happening here today. In fact, at 1.8%, it's the lowest percentage ever recorded in history. We have roughly about 1 million homes that are underwater out there, but my God, this is as good as it gets. So as you can see now, there's a lot of charts that show and explain to you, how do you talk to your clients that it's not the housing bubble years. It's not even close. There's nothing about it. Price inflation, yes. Home sales are low, but the credit quality, not. So yeah, we have a lot of nested equity right now. We don't have to worry about that 2008 underwater data. Next chart. And hopefully by now, after everything that I've showed you in the last 20 to 25 charts, you can realize why home prices hit all-time highs. Now, this chart is scary looking. Look at that. But if I take the United States of America and compare them to other countries, Canada, France, Australia, Norway, New Zealand, their home prices versus their per capita incomes are so much higher than the US. And this is part of the reason why I was worried about housing in 2020 to 2024. Inventory was starting to get to a very low level. And then all of a sudden, all these people were chasing too few homes. And even today, even as of this second, I gave you the latest and freshest inventory data. You can see we're nowhere back to normal. And as of today, all of you get to see how wonderful the credit data looks, right? People don't sell to be homeless. Middle-aged men, stock traders, will sell their houses, run around. They have no relationship with women. They probably hate their kids. They would do crazy stuff, right? But homeowners in America, they wake up, they eat breakfast, they take their kids to school, they go to work, they come home, they eat dinner, they have sex, they start it over and over again. They are normal people. Normal people do not act like stock traders. Stock traders will sell everything like crazy, but as you can see now, the credit data looks awesome because every single one of you, especially during COVID, when we had a surge of demand and everybody had to work very long hours, you put your homeowners in the best spot ever recorded in history. We have 51 million loans in America out there, mortgages, and about 57% of them have rates under 4%, right? Because all of you did your jobs excellent. So hopefully by now, with the presentation that I've seen, I've showed you what the case for is for lower mortgage rates. It's not inflation, it's the labor market, it's getting softer. Why inventory is so hard to even get back to 2019 levels, and how great the credit quality looks. Because once rates go lower, right? If the spreads get better and the 10-year yield goes down, you have sub 6% mortgage rates, every single one of you will do more business. The last 2 years, it's been difficult for me to try to create a model for that. Now I can. So with that said, questions. I love questions. Anything's on the table. For all of you here, you can do Logan GS. This is the HousingWire QR code. You can get a subscription to our HousingWire Tracker Daily. And remember, our data is weekly, live. It's months ahead of everyone. It's not fair that I have this access to this data. I feel like a god sometimes, but we translate it for all of you to have it so you can explain to your clients. We can do this for every zip code in America. Wall Street loves our stuff. Real estate investors love our stuff. But take a look and we try to explain, because I'm not one of these people that do a forecast and go, bye guys, I'll see you in 3 months. Well, I'll see you in 6 months. Day in and day out, we'll hold your hand. We'll talk about economic cycles and housing so all of you have enough knowledge to talk to your clients better.
Logan, that was amazing. 27 charts in just 40 minutes. That could be a record. But everyone, please ask some questions. We have quite a bit of time here for some Q&A. And Logan, I know that you said there was nothing off limits with you. So with that being said, I thought I would, just cherry pick some of these questions here that are coming in. And again, please feel free to ask questions while we're going through this. But we're in a very unique political climate right now, and there's no doubt there needs to be something that helps spur home building, at the very least to try to get us back to some kind of break-even point. Just curious, what administration do you feel has a plan in order to free up the market a little bit and maybe spur some home building activity?
So I always say politics is the word itself. Poly, ticks, many blood-sucking parasites. And I don't actually believe in what we call political economic theory. I track economic cycles. And one of the issues with construction in America is our construction productivity is terrible. I mean, we're still building homes with hammers and nails like we did in the 50s, but also zoning and money, right? Zoning, I mean, the mob in New York and Chicago could learn something from these not in my backyard people. These people are brutal, man. They will do anything to prevent construction. So any of the administrations has to realize they have limited power. It's the local economies or local politicians that really have to get these zoning things. And then we got to get money into the system, because unfortunately, whenever rates go up, you guys all have seen that permit charts. It's now back to recession lows. So when they're done building all these apartments, those workers don't have work for them. So we need to get rates lower. We need to clear zoning, but it also has to be something on the federal and local level, because it takes too long to get some of these things. Like I live in California, it takes like 5 years to get permits or something ready to done and build, and we have to continuously get it going. So it's not so much the federal level, it's federal and local levels, and making sure we have access. I know there's a plan out that Freddie and Fannie are going to start expanding maybe their GSE lending to multifamily like they do with single family, and we could get more credit into the multifamily market. But for the builders, I always say the builders are not the March of Dimes. They're here to make money. So they need lower rates to build more homes, because right now their permits are falling because they're a little bit concerned about demand at this point.
Okay, lots of great questions coming in. So question here, what impacts do you anticipate from the litigation against NAR and HousingWire?
So this is an interesting topic, because I'm going to only talk about the economics of this. First of all, we all need 12 to 18 months to kind of take a look and to see how the market reacts to it. But my first thought is, I don't know if the Department of Justice thought this one out through, because what's occurred, you've all seen, we have trillions and trillions of dollars of equity. The home values became, in a sense, a stimulus program for first-time home buyers, right? And unfortunately, what I can see hasn't happened is that sellers are greedy, guys. People think that they're going to reduce their home prices because they're collecting more. Where in this world have you found this angel? Now, I haven't seen one, right? They're keeping the money. So what I want to see when we go into full effect is that if there's 4 homes in a neighborhood and they're all roughly priced the same, but if the seller doesn't want to pay the buyer's agent, that home buyer has to pay. Guess what? If 3 of those homes are not giving you any kind of a buyer agent commission money, but one does, that home is more affordable. I could already see that the Department of Justice did not think this one out. In a sense, you're making housing more effectively cost expensive, especially for first-time home buyers. So I want to see in the marketplace if sellers and seller agents figure this one out, because I could get anecdotal evidence that the sellers that are offering some, hey, listen, this house, you don't have to bring an extra 15 to 20,000. Oh, all right. That's less money for a first-time home buyer. Now, sellers at first will go, awesome, I get to keep more money. They sell their house, 70 to 80% of them are buyers. They go, and oh, they're on the other side of the equation. So this is why I'm kind of cautioning everybody to let's wait 12 to 18 months. Let's see how this might not be much of anything, because people are going to figure out, wait a second, I'm literally not pricing my home to the best ability. But again, in the big picture, mortgage rates are the big driver on this. But when rates fall, boy, if you're making your home a little bit more expensive for that buyer, that's on you. So I think agents have to kind of train their sellers to realize, okay, you could do this, but if those homes start to do this, your house is net more expensive for that buyer there.
All right, great. Would you be able to tell us what areas of the country are having the fastest price increases and which are having the deficiencies?
So the Northeast and the West Coast part in California, I know in my city of Irvine, which I don't think I should ever use, Irvine's unique, but those areas don't have much inventory growth. Now, 40% plus of all the inventory growth are Texas and Florida. So that's a disproportionately high percentage, but those two states are disproportionately bigger in population. So think about it in this way. We have the third year of the biggest, or after the biggest crash in home sales, we have the third year of the lowest home sales ever. Texas and Florida has insurance issues and taxes, and we're still nowhere near normal out there. So I look at inventory growth as a positive. We have to get back to normal, but also more choices, right? A seller now has more choices if they sell to buy another home. A buyer now has more choices. Okay, so you don't necessarily say that, well, home sales are being held back because inventory is low. Listen, we had over 6 million home sales in the first 2 months of 2022 with inventory at 240,000. So the buying, selling aspect of housing has significantly changed. And the reason I say this, we can close transactions like 8 to 11 business days now. If some of you are like old like me, I remember something called a fax machine and a Transbox, and it used to take a while to get transactions done. So boy, we can do stuff faster now. So Texas and Florida is where majority of the growth is in this country. Parts of the Northeast and parts of the West isn't. We're seeing inventory grow overall, but those are the areas. And as you could all see, we're still nowhere back to normal. But in rates fall, that's the problem. Rates fall, inventory stays flat or goes lower. This is why I wanted breathing room to give the market a little bit of more choices before the rates fell the next time.
All right, so you just sort of touched on this next question. What is the magic interest rate to stir back up again? And how many rate cuts do you forecast over the next 12 months? We got to get that crystal ball going.
Okay, so what we have seen twice now at the end of 2022, mortgage rates went from 7.37 down to 5.99. It gave us 12 weeks of positive data, and then rates shot up again. So that 6% level gives you more demand. Last year, starting in November, mortgage rates went from 8.4% all the way down to 6.63%. It gave us 8 weeks of positive demand. You get rates down towards 6% and it stays there. You can grow sales from these very low levels. It's an extremely low bar. It's when after that, how much lower do you need to go? So I could only get maybe 5.25 mortgage rates if the spreads go lower and the 10-year yield. That's good enough to grow sales. Don't focus so much on Fed rate cuts. Focus on the labor market because the bond market will get ahead of the Fed. So right now the market is priced 100% 2 rate cuts this year. We're looking at 4 to 5 next year, but labor data is key. As we can see, God, inflation has made great progress, but the labor market hasn't broken. When the labor market breaks, these people will all fold and they will stop talking tough. So that jobless claims data is the key to everything. And remember that for everyone that's watching, the 10-year yield, that slow dance, what drives that is the labor market. That's more important than Fed rate cuts because we've already tried to break the Fed twice with the bond market. It hasn't happened because the labor market was still firm. When they all come in together, there's a better backdrop to get to that kind of sub 6% mortgage rate and get there. But more rate cuts in 2025 needs the labor market to deteriorate. The Fed has this model. They want kind of the Fed funds rate to match 3, 6, 12-month core PCE. It's like 3% really right now in that. So you can have about 2 to 2.5% rate cuts being done, and you get that to a neutral level, not accommodative. They're not even talking about doing anything accommodative, but just getting 2 to 2.5% lower in the Fed funds rate gets you to a neutral level.
Okay, and just a clarification from some questions here. Are your charts based on single-family homes and condos or just single-family homes?
Inventory chart is just single-family homes. We do have condos a part of that. We focus more on single-family because the majority of all purchases are single-family homes out there. And another thing, the Florida markets do have some condo issues, and condos in general have some issues in terms of assessment fees because your HOA has gone up. you know, 5, 6, 7, in some cases $1,000. And in parts of Florida, when you have a retired fixed income household, that hurts to a degree. So we focus more on the single family, but we have over 60 data lines, condos, single families, zip codes, everything you could possibly imagine. At HousingWire, we have the ability to look at all of it. And remember, we're fresh. By the time the NAR catches up to it, we're already like 3 months ahead of them. So we try to keep everyone ahead of the curve with current data and also what it looks like going out, because purchase application data looks out 30 to 90 days. It's not something where you take a loan application, you buy the house within 24 hours. We're not that stage yet of our economy.
Okay, this is, wow, lots of great questions coming in. Thank you very much for everybody doing this. We still have some time here and some things that we'd like to hit on. Which of your data points, Logan, charts do you feel are most applicable to second home resort markets? And how should we utilize this information most effectively with our clients in this type of market? Great question.
So the second home market is very small, but if you wanted to talk about the second home market, you go to kind of vacation areas, like for example, hypothetical Palm Springs, right? We have a lot of clients that want to look at the Palm Springs market. So with Altos Research, we basically categorize, or we could do a demo for everybody where we talk about every single live weekly data, and we create a sheet for everyone to show the buyer or seller what the market is doing. Is it a hot market, a down market? And in vacation areas, that's where you want to focus on. But the second home market is so small that in the general national data, it just won't matter that much. But in vacation hotspots like Reno or stuff, places like that, ski mountains, those areas where you get to see the ability for the data to really tell the story. But that's something for our clients. Our clients really like that for those areas because we break that down. Our data that we provide through HousingWire or we do on Twitter or Instagram is national data. It's not the broken down via cities, but we do break down zip codes and cities to give the people the most detailed information, because it's going to be 3 months ahead of the NAR data, and that's just too old, we think.
Okay, this is a question as I run reverse mortgage at Guaranteed Rate Affinity. I love this question right here. With 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day, how is that going to affect jobs data?
Now, the way I describe it is no country has a Dorian Gray labor market. Nature wins. We all get old and we all die. The labor data, the strength the United States of America has over other countries. China doesn't have it, Japan doesn't have it, and Europe doesn't have it. Just to give you all an example, 40% of Japan's population will be dead by the end of the century. We have more millennials and Gen Z combined. Yeah, 40% of Japanese population will be dead by the end of the year. We have a very young workforce. Our population growth is slowing, but we have a massive young, millennials and Gen Z put together are bigger than the total population in Japan. Baby boomers are going to move aside. We have replacement workers for them. We don't have a major growing population anymore. Most mature economies don't, but we have enough labor to replace them. And that means we have enough labor as replacement consumers, right? That's the key. Economics is demographics and productivity, kind of the rest is storytelling. So they will leave. It makes our job openings be elevated compared to the previous decade. You know, so that's why the Fed is always worried about job openings. Oh my God, wages are going to spiral out of control. It's not really the case. You don't see that in Japan, even with their low unemployment. So we have enough labor to replace the baby boomers, but there's parts of the country that don't have a lot of young people growing up in them. Those are the countries that would get hurt the most by the baby boomers leaving. So you need to find replacement workers and you need to get people to move to those areas to replace the baby boomers. That's the concern going out for the next 15 years as more and more of them retire.
Logan, is there something, you know, along with the baby boomers and, you know, aging out and obviously the natural course of life happening, is that something that should be a positive for, I mean, obviously we don't want to see that happen, but the baby boomers, you know, is that eventually going to help open up the housing market a little bit?
So we call this, some of you might have heard this, it's called a silver tsunami. The silver tsunami was a theory back in 2008 because the first baby boomer hit 62 in 2008. That from 2015 to 2025, all the baby boomers would downsize to millennials who could not buy avocado toast, so they won't be able to buy their homes. And we'd have 26 to 32 million active listings. Home prices had to crash. 2015 to 2025, we're actually almost done with that. As you all can see, inventory broke to under 1 million, and our data is 240,000. So the baby boomers love their homes, what we call tombstone economics. They're going to live. A lot of them sell their homes and buy other ones. You know, there's still a good percentage of buyers out there, but a lot of them are going to live in their homes that they're going to die in them, and they're going to pass their homes on to their kids. Now, the next decade, we're going to have more and more people pass away. What their children do with their house, we'll have to wait and see. But we still have a massive young workforce, and you know, those buyers and the baby boomers, it's kind of a wash for right now. So the silver tsunami never happened. And man, baby boomers, I mean, think about what we've done as a country. We've basically marketed to make your house as the best possible so you can live in it. And these people don't want to leave. Why would they? A lot of them don't even have a mortgage, right? So a lot of them are going to age in place and die. And during COVID, when we had an accelerated rate of older Americans dying, we never saw a spike in inventory even during that. So nature wins at the end, death wins. They'll pass her off to their homes. Oh my God, now you've seen all that wealth. There's going to be trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars being passed down to younger households. So what they do with that, if they buy more homes with it, that's a net plus. But those baby boomers will not take their houses to the grave with them. They'll give them off to their kids. That's something that will happen more commonly in the next decade.
Well, Logan, I really appreciate your insight. You know, for everyone on the call, thank you very much. Just a couple of, we have recorded this call. We're going to get it up on Guaranteed Rate Affinity's YouTube page. You could go there right now, bookmark it. We have amazing video and content on there as well. You know, HousingWire, definitely please make sure that you're checking that out. Go to Logan's daily podcast. It really is something that'll help you prepare for the day, talking to your clients, and really making sure that we are all really informed, because there's no doubt the media is just not, we are real time every single day in this market. And the media just seems to be lagging a few days, even a few weeks behind. So, really listen in on Logan's podcast. Go ahead, Logan.
Regarding the media, if it bleeds, it leads, and doom porn sells, people. Trust me, I've been dealing with the housing bubble crash people for 12, 13 years now. We believe that economic models work. We believe in being the detective, not the troll. I'm the chart daddy. I got everything, not just housing, but all the charts in the world. Ask questions. HousingWire Daily Podcast, Sarah and Wheeler and myself come on twice a week. We try to keep everybody versed. The HousingWire Tracker article has all the information that I showed you live. So by the time you read it on Saturday, you're ahead of 99.9% of the population on Earth, right? Because they're not going to get that data until months out. And always ask questions. If you guys have an Instagram account, if you really want to be nerd out, the Chart Daddy is there 24/7. My job is to explain everything because we want to be knowledge. Knowledge is good because if you get more knowledge, your sellers or buyers will get more knowledge. We're good to go.
Knowledge is power. Chart Daddy, I love it. And again, everyone, Guaranteed Rate Affinity really appreciates you attending the call. Please reach out to your Guaranteed Rate Affinity loan officers. We are the purchase expert, and this is what we were built for, this kind of a market. So again, everyone, thank you. Have a great rest of your day, and we will hopefully see you on a next call series. Thanks again. Thanks, Logan.
My pleasure.
Got your eyes on a home? You'll need the local home loan experts at Guaranteed Rate Affinity. We are a fintech mortgage company that streamlined the home buying process. Our loan officers have direct access to the best real estate agents, giving you a completely seamless home buying experience. Featuring the industry's most advanced tech platform and customized loan solutions, our local loan officers can help you at any time from anywhere. Our digital mortgage and power bid approval will get you pre-approved in minutes with a strong offer, even against all cash offers. You need speed to win in this market, and our same-day mortgage delivers, getting you approved in as little as 1 day. Getting you on track for the closing table in as fast as 10 days. Speaking of the closing table, our flash close options shorten the closing appointment from hours to minutes, or skip it altogether. It's your choice. We've made the home buying experience as fast, simple, and awesome as possible for countless others, and we'd love to help you next. Get pre-approved today with the experts at Guaranteed Rate Affinity, and let's get you home.